This is not science fiction. It is the world's largest grid battery, fully operational.
Is real?
But how did a single nation build a power reserve capable of stabilizing an entire grid? Hidden beneath the calm metal skin lay an engineering labyrinth that rewrote the laws of energy storage. But before the blue glow, there was only toxic silt and a seemingly impossible idea. Investigators discovered the origin wasn't a factory, but a desperate blueprint sketched on a napkin. The driving force was an invisible clock ticking toward grid collapse from renewable energy chaos. The design secret wasn't just the battery type, but a fortress architecture to fight the elements. The architects calculated that maintenance speed was more critical than the energy density itself. Because the salt air of the coast would kill a standard battery in months, they invented a new skin. The iconic blue glow wasn't aesthetic, it was a real-time visual cipher of the stored nation's heartbeat. The design blueprint required a supply chain so tight it mimicked a just-in-time organism. With a single red stamp, the project became untouchable, bypassing all bureaucratic limits. It was designed not just to be the largest, but to be larger than the next 10 facilities combined. The digital ghost of the battery already existed, waiting for permission to materialize. To anchor a machine that holds the energy of a city, you must first drive into the Earth's bones. The floating platform wasn't built on soil, it was a 10-meter thick floating raft ready for the sea fight. 60,000 cubic meters of ultra-pure concrete formed the spine, all poured in a single 48-hour tidal window. Before the batteries, the platform needed its own internal railway for assembly line precision. The cells were born in a vacuum, where a single dust speck could trigger catastrophe years later. The jelly roll heart of the battery was wound with the tension of a Swiss watchmaker. Sealed by friction, not fire, the module became an airtight tomb for volatile ions. Only cells that writhed in the agony of overcharge and survived were allowed to join the legion. Every module received a digital soul, trackable from dust to destruction. The migration of the cells began, a silent caravan of energy moving toward the coast. Like blood cells entering the heart, the modules flowed into the logistics nexus. The precision drop required an accuracy of less than 2 centimeters in a sea breeze. Human hands were banned from the installation floor. Only the robot swarm could keep the tempo. Click. The module merged into the array's nervous system, ready for the waking pulse. The gap wasn't just for repair, it was a wind tunnel to stop the battery breathing fire. A synthetic bloodstream colder than ice water kept the electrical heart from melting down. The first breath of intelligence moved through the grid, linking single boxes into a collective brain. The AI brain monitored every single molecule of energy, predicting failure before the atoms even vibrated. To speak to the distant cities, the battery had to whisper to these metal giants. But the real secret wasn't sending power out, it was the terrifying art of absorbing it back in. The inverters performed 1 billion silent transformations a second, turning static storage into a spinning reserve. When the sun baked the desert wastes, the battery drank the overflow to save the grid from overheating. But the true test came from the sea, not the sun. A storm that could bend steel. Investigators found the blueprints for a naval submarine door retrofitted onto a battery box. While the pier was destroyed, the energy stored for half the province stayed bone dry. A single leak could have cascaded into a short-circuit cascade. A cup of clay saved the day. The AI saw the invisible fever first, but it needed human hands to perform the surgery. A hot swap in the middle of a living minefield, a perfectly executed ballet of danger. Inside, they found a crystal dagger growing in the dark, the curse of lithium chemistry. The AI learned its enemy. It didn't just react to fire, it predicted the spark before the tree grew. The structure had to swallow a bolt from the sky to prove it wouldn't trigger its own Armageddon. The vertigo of scale created a new physics pressure, an electrostatic field that could paralyze birds overhead. The invisible force punched a hole in the ecosystem. The shielding had to become a biological shield too. They armored the invisible to protect the visible at a cost of 200 additional tons of exotic alloy. Halfway through, the price of the battery's blood doubled overnight. The project margin evaporated. The project ran out of lithium, so it acquired an entire mining supply chain to survive. The 24/7 death march began to beat the monsoon season. Sleep was a commodity traded for copper. In the invisible skeleton code of the plant, a foreign ghost tried to turn the battery into a bomb. The last line of defense wasn't a firewall, it was a physical copper lever no hacker could touch. A shovel in the ground created a digital lobotomy for half the national reserve. A piece of glass thinner than a hair restored the multi-billion-dollar brain in 45 minutes. The final black test. They deliberately sucked the entire grid's excess to force a failure. It held. A 10-cent fuse became the weak link in a $5 billion chain. It was a cascade waiting to happen. The patch was a solid-state brain surgery tool replacing a blind guard. They built a firewall you can touch, a literal firebreak dividing the legions. Sacrifice one, kill the spark. The grim logic of the thermal firewall proven in a fireball. The energy loop returned to the earth, poisoning itself with salt, yet the copper held firm. The battery wasn't just filled with storage, it became the anchor for a new city's appetite. 3 years after the first pile was driven, the last module took its place in the puzzle. The hand that could either seamlessly weave into the grid or shatter it hesitated for a breath. A man-made lightning bolt connected the battery's soul to the nation's blood vessels. The moment the monster exhaled, the grid's arrhythmia faded to a steady, clean pulse. A housewife cooled her child's room, never knowing the energy came from a storm absorbed 3 days earlier. The men and women who lived in the mud finally saw their monster breathe for the world. The battery became a lantern, a blue heart pumping light into the skeleton of civilization. A piece of paper to certify the concrete, but the real record was reshaping physics. The desert fought back, sending a grit storm to short-circuit the sea's savior. Each grain of sand became a tiny saboteur. 30,000 connectors had to be scrubbed by hand. The Earth itself was hiding a liquid trap. The site rested on a geological jelly. They injected a plastic skeleton into the mud to give the Earth a false backbone. A single snapped thread in a steel rope almost collapsed the West Quadrant in a half-dozen lives. The breach wasn't here, it was hidden in a steel mill's bad batch 5 years prior. A trade code error trapped the brain cells at the border, leaving the battery mute. The world's biggest battery was stalled by a typo, an extra zero in a customs form. The brain almost drowned in chilled water, a tragic irony of the cooling system's failure. A human had to swim into the dark heart to manually rip out the blockage choking the drain. A neighbor's fire poisoned the sky. The battery had to hold its breath and overheat internally. The breathing creature was forced to suffocate in its sealed shell, rocking on the edge of runaway. A gasp of fresh air saved 300,000 cells from thermal collapse by 2 ticks of entropy. Even 0.1 degrees Celsius outflow into the harbor turned the local ecosystem into a political standoff. Transparency diffused the anger faster than the bubble curtain diffused the heat. A distant tectonic slip demanded every last electron hidden in the coastal silo immediately. The physical reaction of energy moving, a mechanical punch translating into light across the grid.
In the heat of the save, one bolted joint became a fuse. Losing it would break the grid's lifeline. A metal dog walked into the heart of a lightning storm and bridged the gap with its body. A 100-kilometer-wide blackout was ripped back from the precipice by a copper strap. Victory tasted bitter with the discovery that a single bolt could have erased the city. To rebuild trust in the metal, 1.2 million bolts were touched and confirmed by hand. The robot dog hero became a permanent protocol. The AI would never trust a bolt again. Behind the glass and steel, the man who held the blackout in his hands carried the invisible scar. The fear of collapse transforms into the quiet mastery of passing the torch. The moment the battery became a nation within itself, a sovereign electric fortress, the sunrise industry powered itself on captured sunset rays, closing the infinite loop. The phantom cloud of 2 million tons of coal vanished from the atmosphere with the posting of one balance sheet. When the moon stole the light, the battery bled itself dry to keep the global supply alive. 3.2 gigawatt-hours gone in a blink, an empty tomb that saved the grid. The sunrise poured back into the empty metal veins, a resurrection scripted by orbital mechanics. A chemical box had rendered a nuclear fission's reaction speed obsolete in providing stability. The world's architects realized the future wasn't a building, it was a product of repeatable industrial cloning. The genetic code of the coastal monster replicated across 3 continents in 18 months. A line of blue boxes on a coast bent the planetary carbon curve sharper than any treaty. The ghost of the old energy crisis was finally laid to rest by a student who succeeded where he failed. The Leviathan wasn't the end, it was the test bed. The real monster is already being born next door. The battery was secretly dimensioned to tame a star, looking past the fossil age entirely. The ultimate success? The public didn't notice it working. Invisibility is perfection. It began as a question of survival. It ended as a silent blue giant holding the sun's promise. The battery was so massive, it gave the continent a mechanical pulse recorded in stone. It powered the very computers that warned of its own doom, creating a self-defending loop of intelligence. The world's most powerful energy ministers walked away feeling they'd been playing with stone tools. The complexity was reduced to a child's game. The next builders were trained by playing blocks. The diesel monsters of the 20th century fell silent, their roar replaced by the whisper of static solid state. The beast was designed for a funeral. It never dies, it's reborn mineral by mineral in its own cradle. The ultimate impact? The extraordinary became the mundane, a silent guarantee in the sky. In the raw silence of the energy tomb, the greatest legacy is the safety we didn't know we needed. The star set over the sea, and one by one, a human star took over the night. If you think this was massive, its impact goes even further. The grid never sleeps.